possible they could be connected? The Allore brothers began to really dig. John tracked down the hunters who had seen clothing in the woods the weekend Theresa disappeared. He was stunned to find out the spot was along the very same road where Louise Cameron's body was dumped. And by accident, John discovered yet another disturbing incident involving another young girl, the daughter of the farmer who had found Theresa's wallet.
Apparently one night, the daughter, who was, I think she's 16 or 17, was walking on the road, and a car came speeding around the corner, and immediately when the driver saw the daughter, the car skidded to a stop. The driver bolted out of the car and immediately began to chase the young woman.
The family told John a police cruiser happened by, but after questioning the driver, let him go. It happened just a month before Theresa disappeared. What happened to that man?
You know, they tried to find the record of him being picked up or something like that, and they never could.
The country road itself took on a new significance. One way leads back to Compton, where Theresa was found. The other way, around the corner, leads directly into South Sherbrooke, right past the point where Manon Dubé disappeared. A little further on, it goes past the armory where Louise Cameron was heading the night she disappeared.
It's like this nexus here. It is this very fluid connector to all these events.
The Allores began to document the connections between the three unsolved cases, dates, locations, evidence. And armed with that information, they turned to an international crime expert, a pioneer in the police science field of geographic profiling, Kim Rossmo.
If we can decode the pattern left by the locations of the crimes, we can use that type of information to help us focus in on where the offender might be.
Back in the 1980s and 90s, Kim Rossmo was a detective working the streets of Vancouver. As a city cop, he helped develop a computer program to determine if seemingly random crimes can be linked. A program now used by the RCMP, the FBI, and Scotland Yard. Skeptical but intrigued, Rossmo asked the Allores for summaries and, most importantly, maps. He started with the murder of Louise Cameron in March of 1977.
The Cameron case establishes for a fact that there was a sexual predator willing to murder women in that area in that time period.
Looking at all three deaths, Kim Rossmo spotted a persuasive pattern. Louise Cameron disappears from Sherbrooke. 10 months later, Manon Dubé disappears from the same area. Then, 9 months later, Theresa Allore vanishes, either from the Lennoxville campus or her Compton residence. Louise Cameron is found here, strangled. Manon Dubé here, face down in a creek. Theresa Allore's body turns up 6 kilometers west, also in water. All three bodies dumped south of Sherbrooke. The wooded area where hunters saw clothing that might have belonged to Theresa, just a few hundred yards from the site of Louise Cameron's body. Theresa's wallet is found here, along the same stretch of road leading back to Sherbrooke, where a young girl was chased by a stranger. Given the unusual cluster and the very low rate of female homicide in that part of rural Quebec at that time, Kim Rossmo came to a shocking conclusion. It is highly unlikely these three deaths are random occurrences.
The simplest, the most powerful, the most likely explanation is that there was a serial killer operating in that area, south of Sherbrooke, in that time period, preying on young women.
A sexual predator prowling the country roads of the eastern townships. A killer who eluded police.
When we return,
If you don't ask the question, how will you ever know?
an idea knocked down by police leads to a possible killer.
He fits the profile.
When CTV's W-5 continues. In just a moment,
She got a raw deal, you know, out of life.
will two brothers finally uncover the truth of their sister's death? We'll be right back.
For decades, Theresa Allore's family and friends had lived with the shameful idea that she died taking drugs and was the victim of a conspiracy of silence among teenage students. Now they were confronted with the possibility she was the victim of a sexual predator, and maybe not the only victim.
I totally believe that Theresa was a victim of a sex crime.
I think Theresa was hitchhiking. I think she was hitchhiking back here because there wasn't a bus available, and she didn't want to wait till the late bus, and I think she got picked up by the wrong person.
Geographic profiler Kim Rosmo believes Theresa, Louise Cameron, and Manon Dubé may have been murdered by the same person living in or near Sherbrooke.
Knowing what we know now, there's every reason to think there was a serial sexual killer working in that area, that time period.
According to Kim Rosmo, the locations associated with these deaths are intertwined, woven together here in the landscape south of Sherbrooke, Quebec. 3 deaths, all young, low-risk women, and all within a 19-month period. The Geographic profiler believes the similarities are not likely the result of chance, and he thinks the cases should be re-examined.
It certainly seems to me to be a reasonable approach to go back, approach this as a single pattern, and see where that may lead the investigation.
There was never any doubt Louise Cameron was abducted off the street, sexually attacked and murdered. Why hadn't the police ever considered the possibility the same thing had happened to Theresa? Perhaps because it was easier to believe her death was accidental.
When they did solve the
As late as 2002, after the Allores went public with Kim Rosmo's opinion, retired Sûreté agent Roch Goudreau appeared on local television defending the drug overdose theory.
I'm still believing that it's an accident by drug overdose.
I think investigators form pet theories, and they're very stubborn to get them off these theories. It would, at this point in his life, I think it would upset his whole frame of reference for him to go back and say, my gosh, I might have been wrong.
We tracked down Roch Goudreau at this private investigation firm in Sherbrooke, but he refused to talk to W-5 about the Allore case.
No, I don't have anything to say on that case.
Louise Cameron case is a sex murder.
From his police experience, Kim Rosmo finds the drug overdose theory an incredible stretch, not supported by the facts.
I'd like to see a list of such cases where young women were found dead from a drug overdose and after a party, and no one ever talked about it, and their body was dumped some distance away with the clothing taken off. It seems to me a little more like a TV script than real life.
Except on TV, cases get solved. Rosmo also finds the Sherbrooke police theory about the suspicious death of Manon Dubé equally implausible.
How many hit and runs does the offender put the victim's body in his or her car and drive it away? I'll just ask you that. And I was a police officer for over 20 years, investigated hit and runs. I don't remember one hit and run that involved anything like that.
Kim Rosmo says the deaths of Louise Cameron, Manon Dubé, and Theresa Allore need to be looked at as a pattern. But the Quebec Provincial Police, the Sûreté de Quebec, says there are no